and good morning. Welcome to the City of East Chicago show here on WJOB, AM 1230, 104.7 FM. As always, the phone number is 845-1100 with a 219 in front of that. I have with me today Mayor Anthony Copeland from the City of East Chicago, as well as our new police chief, Hector Rosario, and well, the fire chief. He's been around a while, but of course we have with us none other than Tony Serna, fire chief for the City of East Chicago. I'm Verly Suggs, the host of the East Chicago show here on WJOB, and we're going to start with the mayor. Good morning.
Good morning, Verly. It's been a while.
Right, I think I got you here right after the election.
Yes.
And of course, it's great to have you back.
And you know, Verly, I tell people I like to let the department heads come so we can get the message into the community. Sometime when the elected official come, the conversations can go south. So I like the message to be firm and clear. But I can truly say I do miss being on the show.
Well, great. Well, it's good to have you back. Of course, there's so many great things happening in the City of East Chicago, and we're going to start with those right away. But I first want to say good morning to Tony and Hector. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Great. Well, Mayor, City just received an outstanding report from Standard & Poor's, and I want you to share with that to our listeners and viewers.
Well, Verly, you know, when I first came in as mayor, the city was $15 million in debt. We was using $13 million of the general fund. I mean, of the casino money to shore up the general fund. Employees was working, was giving up a day. They was doing furlough days. And so then we just chipped at it like a big giant block of ice. We just chipped at it. And I'm happy to report that Standard & Poor's have just released their rating report for the City of East Chicago. And if you give me a few minutes, I'll read some of the excerpts.
I'll give you all the time you need, Mayor.
Now, this is the excerpts from their report. Now, this is not me. And it surely is not an infomercial. But the S&P, meaning Standard & Poor's, global rating raised its long-term rating to A from A- on the sanitary district series 2015 revenue bonds. The outlook is stable. The rating action reflects the general credit worthiness of East Chicago, whereas previously our rating was based on the sanitary district's revenue pledge.
Mayor, I'm going to have you move your mic a little closer to your mouth. Thank you.
The district's revenue pledge. The stable outlook reflects our expectation that the city will maintain a very strong budgetary flexibility and liquidity over the next 2 years, which in our view mitigates short-term risk from the concentrated tax base, revenue volatility, and potential legal judgments. They go on to say, following a history of political corruption and weak management, we believe the city's governance and financial management have greatly improved over the past decade, stabilizing the city's credit profile. In September 2010, the city's mayor resigned following a guilty verdict in federal court for misusing city funds. The Lake County Democratic Party then concluded a caucus and selected Anthony Copeland as new mayor, who was then elected in the fall of 2011. Mayor Copeland is seeking a re-election for third term in November 2019. The present financial administration has been in place since the mayor took office in 2011. Since then, the city has made substantial changes to its budget, returning it to structurally balanced position without reliance on gaming revenue, and significantly built its reserves from a negative position. It goes on to say, over the past decade, the city administration has made drastic budgetary adjustments to eliminate reliance on gaming revenue. To subsidize the general fund, mostly significant, the city reduced its workforce by more than 30%, from 800 employees to 550 employees, using a combination of early retirement incentives, attrition, and layoffs. Other major budgetary initiatives included a redesign of the city's insurance plan and contracting out the city's emergency medical services, which alone saved more than $10 million. In our view, excuse me. In our view, the city continues to proactively manage its budget, seeking efficiencies wherever possible, which has allowed it to hold the line on spending. General fund expenditures in 2018 were $30.7 million compared to $20.6 million in 2011. At the same time, revenue has been growing to $38.2 million in 2018 from $32.6 million in 2011. As a result, the city has completely eliminated subsidies from the casino revenue fund while building a significant surplus in its general fund. Property taxes generated approximately 82% of the city's general fund revenue, while income taxes account for 8%. It goes on to predict the future. It says, outlook. The stable outlook reflects our expectation that the city will maintain very strong budgetary flexibility and liquidity over the next 2 years, which in our view mitigates short-term risk from the concentrated tax base. Potential for gaming revenue volatility as Chicago ramps up its plans for a new casino and pending litigation. In addition, we anticipate that the city will continue to proactively manage its budget to maintain structural balance. For this reason, we do not expect change in the rating within the 2-year outlook period. Downside scenario. We may lower the rating if the city were to develop a structural imbalance, if reserves and liquidity deteriorated significantly, if the city was to issue substantial debt, or in the case of negative event related to a major taxpayer. Upside, we could raise the rating if the city economy were to diversify and demonstrate resiliency through future recessions, and if the city is able to manage through potential credit risk and associated with gaming revenue and litigation without significantly financial deterioration. So again, really, this is Standard & Poor's view of the city of East Chicago financial health. And it's funny that it says Standards & Poor's. I think it simply says if you have no standards, you will be poor.
Well, that's an excellent point to make. Standard & Poor's is a national rating company. I mean, for them to actually know the history of East Chicago and the corruption that brought about a lot of the reasons why money and progress did not happen in the city of East Chicago, for you to achieve under your administration that type of rating, that increase, that means that lower interest rates and loans and so many things, it makes businesses, when they want to come to East Chicago, they're going to read that and they're going to say, oh, East Chicago is a great place to locate. For you to achieve that, that's phenomenal.
And Verdi, also when we started, we was double B junk bond status. And in a short period of time, we've went from junk bond status to A. And they show you right there that if we didn't have the liability risk out there of the lead issue, that we would have been even higher than an A.
That's just phenomenal. You've made a lot of changes in the city of East Chicago to get to this point and to have a surplus, and then to look at the looming possibility of Chicago having casinos and knowing that you're not depending on casino revenue to keep the city going in the direction it's going is amazing. I know you have with you your fire chief as well as your police chief, and we're going to talk about some of the things and the changes that were made in those departments to help get the city to where it is today.
And you know what, Verdi, some people might say, well, if you're talking about financial stability, then why is the police and the fire chief here? We're here, Verdi, because of an ordinance sponsored by Councilman Robert Garcia that we say that will devastate this financial position. And I hope that we can go into this ordinance and it simply deal with how we fund our pension fund. And Standard & Poor's also touched on that. They said this. They say the city makes annual contributions to the state-managed Indiana Public Employees Retirement, meaning PERF, and the 77 police officer and fireman pension disability funds. At June the 30th, 2018, the PERF was 79% funded, and the 77 fund was 102% funded. Then they go on to say this, and this is why we're getting ready to talk about this ordinance. We do not expect the city's required pension costs to increase significantly during the next few fiscal years. Therefore, we do not expect the pension costs to be a budgetary pressure to the city. And this is why we're here today. Councilman Garcia is getting ready to try to sponsor an ordinance to increase how we fund the pension that will devastate the city's financial position. It will take us back down that dark alleyway. him. He also have other cohorts on the council. And the thing that saddened me, we have some people that was former police and firemen who should know better. And then now I look, and now I can see why, in the wisdom of the state, when they sit up there and say, you can't be a councilman and work for the city, because you get schizophrenic. You don't know which one, or you don't know where your alliance is.
You always recluse yourself from something.
Yes.
So definitely it's important that you not have two masters to serve.
Yes.
Let's start with our police chief,
Yes.
Hector Rosario, the newly appointed chief for the city of East Chicago.
Yes.
Tell us about the police department right now. Because a lot of people will say that, if you call for a police officer in East Chicago at this point now, a police officer will respond immediately.
Yeah, currently we have 82 police officers at this time. Of those 82, I have 5 at the police academy. They should be graduating sometime in December, I believe. So, yeah, the streets are manned. Some of it is overtime, due to the issue that we have right now. But the streets are always manned.
And when you talk about overtime, because I know a lot of times police officers have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Does this overtime help to eliminate that need for some of them?
It alleviates a lot of it. They're picking up the overtime at time and a half rate as opposed to working a side job for whatever they're getting, $20, $25. So it helps out a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Verly, as we go to get with the staffing number that we're trying to achieve, which is 98, the difference in where we're at and where we're achieving at, like you said, with the 5 new ones coming from the academy, that money that we have budgeted is what we use for overtime. So there's a balance. There's a balance there. It's not like we're going in a negative to fund the overtime. So it's a balance.
Oh, no. I remember a time many years ago when on a July 4th evening, there were only 2 police officers manning the streets in East Chicago that night. Mm-hmm. And so to have an increase in not only patrols, but to have men in the academy,
yes.
On the road to becoming police officers in East Chicago, that's something that we should be very happy about.
And also, I can commend the officers, because this is the 7th year in a row crime has gone down in the city of East Chicago. So something is happening that's right. And it's not because of Manning.
Right. So tell us a little bit more about the department, Chief.
We just tested this past weekend. We had 22 applicants that came in. Of those 22, 2 were certified officers already, so we're trying to move forward to the next step. They did take their physical agility and their written test.
Now, what happens when you hire a police officer that's already certified? You don't have to send them to the academy, or is there certain training you require because they're going to be an East Chicago police officer?
They don't have to attend the academy. They're already certified through the academy. Basically, what we do at that point, we put them with another officer in our field training program. It's a kind of condensed version as opposed to someone that just came out the academy, since they already know how to be a police officer, so to say. They're just learning our rules and regulations, learning our city geography and whatnot.
Now, I know there were a lot of changes made, not only with police but fire as well, and some of that comp time that in the past they were able to have so many days off, and that depleted the number of officers you had on duty, has now been compensated instead.
We pay 0 comp. They cannot amass comp time. Right. I wiped that out because it was illogical for me to let you stay away from work. I'm paying you to be at work. So whenever they worked over, I wouldn't let them amass comp time. I just paid them out cash. And that's what you can do when you have a healthy financial climate. I could pay them for any overtime. I didn't have to compensate them for comp time. So I paid it as we needed them, and that's the stability that we have now.
Well, that increases your income as well. Rather than having so many days off, you actually have a bigger paycheck.
And because when they have a day off, you have to replace them because we have minimum manning standards. We have 8 men that's on the turn. So if I let that officer go on comp time, then I have another one. Now I got to pay it at time and a half. Now I'm paying him to be away from work, then I'm paying somebody else to replace him at time and a half. And I thought that was illogical.
Exactly. Now we have the fire chief here, and Chief Serna, tell us about your department and what this has meant for you and what the changes may mean.
Well, that's what I want to talk about, is that this ordinance 19-0024, this is devastating. This is a devastating ordinance. When I first picked this up this week, I looked at it, and it's almost impossible to calculate the cost that this not only is going to hurt us in 2020, but beyond. Some of the changes, it's almost as if you asked an employee to write this, because this is unbalanced. It's written totally towards an employee. As an administrator, I have to look at not just what is best for the employees, but what's best for the taxpayers. This ordinance 19-0024 will hurt the taxpayers. I tried to calculate some of the money, and I don't know if the council has calculated yet, because we have yet to have a public safety committee.
Well, Chief, I can answer that. I got ill trying to calculate this. After I surpassed 2 million, I couldn't take it no more.
Of the overall cost to each Chicago taxpayer. I physically got ill when I got past 2 million. In 1 year, it's going to be 2 million over the budget that I submitted to be approved by the council. I stopped at 2 million. Because when I look at this thing could spiral into $4 million to get them for 1 year. I give you an example. In here, longevity. We max longevity out at $1,260. They proposed to raise it for somebody with 20 years. It max out at 20 years. They went from $1,260 to what is it?
$10,000.
Almost $11,000.
That's an 870% increase for 1 year. Overall, the increase is just in longevity alone. There's many things that are changing here, but just in longevity alone.
It sounds like letting a child loose in a candy store with a big bag.
Last time I checked, I'm not Santa Claus.
You know, the percentage increases in longevity alone are in the hundreds. 436% increase for someone with 21 years or more. That's just in longevity. Another aspect of this is building banks. You know, when in 2010 was the last year that you can have a bank that you could cash out. After that, for stability, for financial stability, banks were frozen. This ordinance opens banks wide open. This ordinance would triple the liability of banks. I get a monthly report of our liability.
Explain to our listeners what banks is.
What banks are is your sick time or your vacation time, and what this ordinance proposes is an additional thing called reduction days. Firefighters work a certain amount of hours over Fair Labor Standard Act thresholds, so we get what's called Garcia-Kelly days. That's one option. Another thing that some departments do is give reduction days. Reduction days are time away from work. When you build a bank, and you're able to cash that out, that's a liability on the city. The liability.
So that's money you would have to pay out to an officer.
And in this ordinance, the way it's written, the recklessness of this ordinance, it's written as it stands right now to allow terminal leave, to allow these banks to build and give a firefighter or policeman the option to take terminal leave, which means you'll be away from work. When a firefighter's away from work, I have to pay their salary. In terminal leave, the way this is written, I would then have to pay to backfill that position time and a half. So say here a chief officer, his time away for the banks that they're proposing, 6 months worth of banks, would cost about $37,000. The time and a half is about $44,000. So we're looking at $70,000, almost $70,000 for someone to be away from work for 6 months. This ordinance is reckless. I hope that the city council takes the time to look at this and find the balance.
What would make the city council and Councilman Garcia, who is the author of this ordinance, resort to going back to something that East Chicago has gotten away from?
Because really, I just believe that, you know, it's like how they used to say, you have to have that tough love, you know, and it takes, when you go to make tough decisions, you can't worry about if people love you. Of course, when you give people everything they want, they're going to love you until you stop giving it to them. But right here, really, I froze the ability for them to do banks and everything. After 2011, anybody coming in wouldn't know what a bank is. Anybody that had banks, I grandfathered them in. So there was no harm, no foul. So when we went into the future, there was no more banks. There was no more amassing of sick time. And that's why stability came. See, you can't let a person come in as a probationary firefighter or police officer. Let's just use a hypothetical, making $10. Then 20 years later, they go to cash in the bank and now they're making $25. See how illogical it is? You know, so we pay in real time. That's when you can do when you're healthy financially. Now, there was a time when the city was cash strapped and they used little gimmicks like this. They would give them more time away from work to try to compensate because they didn't have the money. But I have the money and I pay them out in real time. As they earn it, as we use them, we spend it down in real time. And now they want to go back down this dark alleyway. Not only that, all the new officers come in would know nothing about that old system. But now, all of them that I froze since 11, this ordinance opens it up and let them all be available for all this other past garbage or pursuiter we got rid of. So I'm just hurt that people who know better. I told you, I stopped calculating that too, but if I really think about this thing could go up to $4 million what it cost us. But the irony of it all, you can't even calculate it.
Well, you can't calculate it, but it will cost you more than that, because when you look at your Standard & Poor's rating, once you start going down, then the interest rates that you'll pay will be higher, and it will cause you to not get the businesses that want to come to East Chicago. Chief Rosario, Chief Serna, a lot of people would say, well, you're appointed, you're the fire chief, you're the police chief. You're here with the mayor today because of those positions you have.
I'm also a taxpayer.
But you're also a taxpayer.
I live in East
share
Chicago.
why you're here today.
Basically, it's no good for the city. Like, when I took this job as the chief, one of my things was to lower the crime rates and to make sure the city was safe. Doing this, it ain't going to allow me to do that. You're going to run the streets ragged because my men are going to be they're going to be off work. You're going to have to start paying them overtime. They're going to be forced overtime. It's one thing when you know you're going to work overtime, like I'm prepped for it. I know I'm coming into work, I'm going to work overtime. It's another thing to say, hey, at the last minute, you're getting forced over because now this guy wants to take an extra sick day, or he has his bank built up for comp time or whatnot. He wants to take off. Now you're forcing them over. They're disgruntled. They're not going to be answering the calls the way they want, or they should be. The response time is going to be a lot slower. I just think it's a bad idea.
Now, Chief, you were not brought in from outside of East Chicago. You were actually a product of East Chicago.
In 1998, I graduated high school. I graduated Hammer High. I'm sorry about that, but I graduated Hammer High, and then they had a cadet program at that time.
Okay.
I worked as a cadet till I was 21 years old. When I turned
so as a teenager, basically, you got involved in East Chicago Police Department. 21,
I dispatched for a year. 2002, I got hired on as a police officer. I've been there ever since. And then from then, I moved up the ranks. Made sergeant. I made lieutenant. I made deputy chief, and now here I am as chief now.
So right from the ranks, you have become to the highest point you can.
Yes.
Chief Serna, same with you. You grew up in East Chicago,
born and raised here, 3804 Deal Street, and bought my home here 1 year after I got on the fire department. The fire department has afforded me so much personally with my family. It's brought my life up, and I want to share that with East Chicago residents. The programs that I'm starting, the things that I'm doing, everything in the community is because I love my job. But part of my job as an administrator is to watch how these dollars are spent. And this ordinance, 190024, this ordinance is reckless. I would ask that the city council find balance. Of course, we want to reward firefighters. Of course, we want to see our pension increases. But the way this is written right now, we still have time. We need to come to the bargaining table. We still have time to find balance. This is totally skewed the wrong way.
Now, this direction, you're talking to the council to not support this ordinance, but what about the taxpayers? How do you tell them that this is detrimental to the city of East Chicago?
Well, again, Verley, if we went from junk bond status and then we find ourselves with an A rating, who would want to spiral down that rabbit hole? Who would want to go back that way? If you look around, look at your city. It's cleaner. It's healthier. We're demolishing and raising old dilapidated buildings. We're putting flowers there, the beautiful things. We're putting up sculptures, the things that you deserve. Look at your parks. All of these things is because we are financially healthy. And then to sit there and want to take one segment of the workforce and then enrich it on the back of the other ones. You still need your people in the sanitary department to pick up the garbage. Don't pick up the garbage for a week and see how your city look. Don't pick up the snow and see how you can get around. How can you reward one segment and enrich them so greatly that they become obese and then you can't even use them because they ain't even healthy? And then you give them so much time away from work. There's only two ways you can do this. You can give a person more time off and less money, or you can give more money and less time off. But you can't enrich them in both directions. That's impossible. That's insanity. Both of these guys, to my left and to my right, I swore both of them in. And last time when I checked, when I swore them in, they took an oath to protect and serve. They did not take an oath to protect and self-serve. That's illogical. East Chicago, if you truly want to go back down that political way, and then we become the fodder and the joke and the laughing of Northwest Indiana, then you follow this council in this folly that they are creating. It is insane, East Chicago, that we leverage our children's future on the back of insanity. This is insane with all the sacrifices that we've made. I told you I went from 800 employees to 550. Look at people who made a sacrifice. And now that we're becoming healthy, and then we're going to take our children, and the sacrifices that they made, and only because of a few? Huh? How many people do it take to make a damn fool? I leave it at that. One. We will not go back down this dark alleyway, not on my watch. And again, we will fight them tooth and nail, because it is illogical to sit here and bring across something that you can't even create an appropriation for. Now, they always telling me, we want accountability, I can show you accountability. We went from being 15 million in the hole to 13 million depending on casino revenue to now having a $35 million budget surplus. So that's my accountability. Tell me, what is yours, counsel?
Mayor Copeland, you still have the fire that you had as the host of Citizens in Action, and still accountability.
I love this city with all my heart, my soul, my kidney, my liver, my pancreas, everything that I am. I was born right in St. Catherine Hospital and resided all of my 64 years in East Chicago, raised at 3813 Block Avenue. Everything that I am and will be is because of East Chicago. And the only thing that I regret is that we don't have a graveyard in East Chicago where they can bury my dead body in. That's the only way you can take me outside the city. Other than that, East Chicago, I tell you to man up, pull your sword out of your sheath, and just go to war and tell this council. It is insane that you're going to take us backwards. It's okay. Let me tell you something. You can zig and you can zag and you can still go forward. But when you go backwards, you don't gain territory. So East Chicago, we're not going back down that dark alleyway. We're not going to do it.
Citizens of East Chicago, if this is important to you, you definitely need to be at the city council meetings. You need to show the mayor that you support the progress that the city has made under his administration. And city council members, you were voted and elected to serve the city of East Chicago. Don't self-serve. Chief Serna, I know you want to share something real quick about Halloween. Our time is coming to an end, but we want to let the citizens of East Chicago know what's going on for Halloween, because, you know, we always do great things in East Chicago.
Steve Segura made sure that he gave me this. First things first, the fire department open house this Saturday, coming up October the 5th. October the 5th coming up is our open house at the fire department, 3901 Indianapolis Boulevard, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The big event, the EC Hollow Trunk or Treat, Haunted House and Trail. Wear your costume. It's only $5 per person. Children 4 and under are free. The dates on the EC Hollow are Thursday and Friday, October 24th and 25th at Kosciuszko Park. It's a great time. Come on out.
Mayor Copeland, I want to thank you for coming on the City of East Chicago show, as well as Fire Chief Tony Serna, Police Chief Hector Rosario. Mayor, we got to make sure you come here every month, because you need to let the citizens of East Chicago hear from you as well as from your department heads.
Well, Verdi, just like when you love hard, when you have to fight hard, even when you win, your knuckles scarred up, your blood pressure done went up. You ain't the same even when you win. So Verdi, I want to live.
Well, I'm sure Mrs. Copeland feels the same way, so we'll just let you come on periodically. How's that?
Well, I tell you what, we got to fight for it, because if we don't, I won't have a pension.
Okay. With that said, this has been the City of East Chicago show here on WJOB AM 1230, 104.7. Stay tuned for our Veterans Views program coming up next. That's our award-winning Veterans program. See you next month.